Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and yes, after nearly 3 months, I am back. And on an unexpectedly rainy drive that looks like it might already be starting to break up a bit. Now, I'm going to be continuing from where I left off a few months ago with my videos. For those of you who don't recall, the last video that I posted up was the question as to whether or not sexism is intrinsic to tabletop gaming. I said at the end of that video that we would follow up with one suggesting 3 ways in which you can help to combat the problem of sexist behavior showing up at your table when it is very much not welcome. Now, before I get into the video, I do want to touch on why exactly I have been just gone for the last 3 months. And funnily enough, it actually started as a very mundane thing. It just so happened to be that the week after I put that video up, as I was trying very hard to get this video put together, I ended up getting extremely busy at home, to the point that I just seriously did not have any time to get the video up. My wife and I were doing a lot of work around our house. We had gotten the exterior of the house totally repainted. We were working on completely retooling her front and back garden. It was a lot of work. But that week, or that about 2 weeks of work, then bled right into the YouTube Adpocalypse 3.0 situation. I'm not going to dwell on or dig deep into that situation, but suffice it to say, a couple of personalities online, namely Carlos Maza of Vox and Stephen Crowder, had butt heads for a little while, and Maza, during Pride Month, I believe it was, decided then to use what clout he had to try and get Stephen Crowder pushed off YouTube. It worked briefly, led to a lot of drama, led to a lot of, cold feet on the hands of advertisers, as the adpocalypses always do, and left me questioning whether or not I really wanted to stick around YouTube, whether or not I wanted to potentially move more exclusively over to BitChute or Minds. Well, I've been mulling over that for the past few months, on top of still being pretty busy outside of YouTube, and really it's only been within the past couple of weeks that I've come to my decision, and the busyness has sort of died down enough that I can start doing this again. And obviously, as you can see, my decision was, fuck it, I'm going to stick around on YouTube. I don't talk about the kind of topics that get the Silicon Valley tech oligopoly nervous enough to get me really banned or really have much fear of it happening. And even if it does, I just do this as a hobby. It's not like I'm going to be losing my income from this, so I'm not overly concerned. So, with that out of the way, let's move straight into it. 3 things you can do to combat sexism, and not just sexism, but every ism and phobia at your table when it makes a member of your group uncomfortable. First thing is first. Number 1, talk with the offending party. And I emphasize, talk with them. Don't scream at them, don't yell at them, don't get everyone at the table ganging up on them in self-righteous anger. Because that's just going to leave you in an even worse situation. Instead of trying to fix the problem of the damaged health of your group, you will end up exacerbating it by adding a new dimension to it. Even if you are angry, do not give in to that self-righteous anger and start barking demands of the person making these comments. Because ultimately, that's going to be every bit as destructive, if not more so, as comments that are making a player or a GM uncomfortable. Now, ideally, you won't run into this situation because you'll have worked this stuff out in a session 0. But even session 0s aren't necessarily going to account for this happening. So, if it does happen, be patient. Don't dive in with righteous fury. Don't start bringing a whole new level of negativity to the table by getting furious about it. Stay calm, stay composed, and politely talk to the offending party about why these comments are making you uncomfortable, why these actions, whatever they may be, are making you uncomfortable, and that you feel they're not very acceptable, and that you would prefer if they stop. Now, there's 2 reasons why I suggest this. First and foremost, because the vast majority of the time, I would say at least 90% of the time, this is probably going to more or less fix the problem. You might have to say it again once or twice over the same session or possibly future sessions if it is something that has been a bit habitual to the person. But generally speaking, we're all there to play the game. And if someone is making someone else uncomfortable, and that person who's made uncomfortable politely approaches them about that, well, the offending party is usually actually going to be kind of understanding about that. At least from what I've experienced. And I've experienced a lot over the many years that I've been doing this hobby. As I've mentioned previously, I've played with people from all around the world who have wildly differing views in how people should behave. But when we're at the game table, digital or otherwise, we've always agreed that the health of the table is what's the most important thing right now. And that even if we're making the kind of lewd, crude, crass, rude jokes that normally we'd be okay with, if we know that someone's at the table who doesn't find these things okay, we're going to pull back to make sure they can have fun too, because we're all there to have fun together. Number 2, the second reason I should clarify that I say talk to them first and be patient and be calm is because most of the time when these sort of things happen, or when you hear about them at least, it's in some sort of a public setting, or public adjacent, I guess you could say. It's something like people in a comic shop playing D&D, people at a con playing tabletop games, people posting invites to a game online and bringing in complete strangers to play with them. Sometimes people are going to make these comments and they're not going to know what other people's limits are. How can you? Most of the time you're not playing with people you know in these scenarios. Now, generally speaking, most people in that situation are going to look at that and say, rule of thumb, I'm just not going to say stuff like this because I don't know how they're going to react. However, you're going to run into times where people will make comments or gestures or other things that you find rude. The thing is, particularly when it comes to certain guys who partake in this hobby, a lot of the time the people who are making these comments are not necessarily sexist or racist or what have you. They're just socially awkward people who are trying to be edgy and grabbing for a little bit of attention in the wrong way because they don't really know that's not the right thing to do. This hobby is one of the most open and accepting hobbies ever. And it makes perfect sense because the kind of people who pioneered the hobby were the kind of people who were treated like trash for being different. And sometimes those people were treated like trash for being different because they didn't know better. So if you're polite and calm and patient with them and explain to them why you don't find that kind of thing acceptable, well, then not only are you openly giving them the opportunity to change, you're doing so in a way that's not going to belittle them when they might have an issue that you're not aware of. So really, it ends up being more of a win-win that way, potentially. However, it's not always going to be the case. There will be times where you'll run into people who are just going to keep doing this stuff. And at that point, you move on to number 2, putting your foot down. Now, my personal recommendation before you put your foot down is ask politely at least twice. Barest minimum, ask politely once. I tend to lean towards do it twice. Third time, I'm going to start getting a lot more stern with you. 3 strikes rule. Basically, putting your foot down is putting forth the ultimatum. You tell this person, or if you're the GM particularly, you tell this person, you need to stop. It's already been clarified. This is making someone at the table uncomfortable. You need to stop, and if you don't, you're out of the game. And you need to stand by this. Again, don't be rude about it. Don't scream, don't yell, don't be pushy. Don't be a dick about it, but be firm and stand by your comment. Stand by what you say you're going to do if it keeps going. Now, I mentioned this is more for GMs, but this is something players can do as well. Especially if it's a situation where more than one person or even most of the group is doing stuff like this and making you feel uncomfortable. You can still speak up and say, hey, if this isn't going to stop, then I'm going to leave. I don't want to be in a group like this. You can make that determination as well. And again, stick by it. If you say this, you have to follow through if the behavior doesn't stop. Otherwise, that player and possibly other people at the table who might be a little more willing to kind of be quiet, but maybe a little resentful about it. It's rare, but that does happen. They're not going to respect your rulings as a GM if you don't follow through. So put your foot down and follow through. And the same goes for you as a player. If it turns out that the person is just not willing to change, they're not willing to stop, then you need to put your foot down and say, hey, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to put up with this. And if it continues, you need to leave. You need to leave. You need to stand by your statement. You need to stand by what you're trying to hold this other person up to. Follow through. Put your foot down and follow through. And from there, you would think that's the end of it. But not necessarily. We do have one more. Number 3. This is for situations when they're particularly bad. This is for a situation where, yeah, maybe you do leave for one session. Maybe you do leave for multiple sessions, but you come back to the group. Maybe it's your regular group and it makes you uncomfortable, but they do it anyway. At that point is when you come to this step. And that is taking consideration of the company you're keeping. The simple fact of the matter is, unfortunate as it is to say, if this is a constant in your gaming life, then at this point, it falls on you to make the change. If you're in a situation where your group is consistently making you feel uncomfortable, is consistently doing these little things that you find distasteful and make you feel unwelcome, but you stick around because, damn it, you just want to play the game, you are making a grave mistake. No game is worth your personal respect and your personal mental health. And I say this because this sort of thing happening continuously, yes, absolutely can have an adverse effect on your mental health if it really is something that makes you feel that uncomfortable. And hell, even if it's just something that you personally find pretty distasteful, even if it doesn't reach the point that you feel it can adversely affect your mental health, you should still be taking stock. Because if you find it distasteful enough that it makes you kind of want to leave and it makes you want to speak up and say, hey, fucking stop it. That's not okay with me. Well, then you need to start thinking about whether or not this is actually the right group for you. Because how much fun are you really having if, while you're involved in the game, you've got that constant worry in the back of your mind that someone's going to make that stupid joke that bothers you so much? How much joy is the game really bringing you at that point? Even at its highest points, that is always going to be tarnished by that offending person or people if it does get to you to that point. So, take stock of your situation. Really look at it. And if you know these people aren't willing to change, be willing to be the one who makes the change yourself. Leave the group and find another one, because no game is worth that. We are there to have fun, all of us together. And if someone or someones are preventing you from doing that, then that is not the group for you, and you need to take stock and leave. Well, that brings us to the end, friends and gamers, and that is all I have to say on this subject. If you liked the video, please feel free to leave it a like. Comment down below with your own thoughts if you have ideas on other ways in which this can be tactfully handled. And I do want to note, that is the goal here. We want to handle this tactfully. We don't want to bring more hostility to the table. We don't want to bring more problems to the table that have already been brought by this scenario happening to begin with. So, make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Hit that bell notification icon, open the description box, and follow me on the social media links down below. In particular, minds.com is an important one to follow, as that is the place where I am the most active. Well, I was going to say most active outside of YouTube, but let's just face it, at this point, it's just the place where I'm the most active. So go ahead and follow me there. You can find updates for my other projects there as well, including Phoenix Rising, my monthly webcomic that I work on with my good friend Hair Illustrations. And by the way, we have just this last week passed the 1 year anniversary of the comic. An anniversary special has been posted up on Webtoons. You can find a link to the Webtoons page for Phoenix Rising down below. Make sure to follow me on my BitChute page as well, so that way, if for some reason you cannot, will not, or just don't want to use YouTube, well, you have the option of following me on BitChute as well. Almost all of my videos have been backed up over there, and I will be going through, probably within the next week or two, making sure that everything is backed up there as it should be. And with that now said and done, dear friends and gamers of all stripes, as usual, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and it is my sincere hope that you continue to roll high, role play well, and game on.